Good morning, everyone. So, this inequalities question was discussed in my Facebook and WhatsApp group as part of the daily challenge questions. It's not a very difficult question, but involves some very important basic concepts that you should know about. And that is exactly what we are going to do today. We are going to solve this in two methods. One, the wrong approach, and there is a reason why we are doing it. And then we will solve it with the right approach. The trick here is that both the approaches give you the right answer. However, solving it with the wrong approach and getting the right answer is actually detrimental to your future GMAT score. A little bit of logistics. If you want to be part of my WhatsApp practice group or my Facebook group, please see below in the details. If you like this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe to my channel. It takes only a few seconds of your time, but helps me with the YouTube. And finally, comment. I personally answer to any comments on my GMAT videos. So if you have any comments, please feel free to comment in the section below. Okay, let's get started. As I said, we're going to start with the wrong method first. Why? And here are a few of the reasons. Number one, you get a right answer with this wrong method. So even if you use the wrong method, you think your method is correct, and that reinforces your habit and concepts, which are all incorrect. So understanding what method is wrong is extremely as critical as understanding what is the right method to solve this problem. The second reason why you must understand the wrong method and why it is wrong is that even if you see the right approach, eventually you would think that your method is faster and better, because here the wrong method is actually faster to solve, and you would use it in a future problem where you would actually get the answer wrong or incorrect. So unless you are explicitly which is the right method and which is the wrong method, you will end up making a lot more mistakes in the future. And finally, thinking that your wrong method is actually the right method to continue solve these problems opens you up for future traps, especially in your actual GMAT exam. And here is what would happen, right? If you get an easy inequality problem, but you use the wrong method and you get a wrong answer, you would end up getting a big penalty for something you could have solved very easily. On the other hand, if it were a hard problem, a 700 or 750 plus level problem, and you applied the wrong method, it could be the difference of 10 to 20 points on your GMAT exam, which would be a difference of 690 to 710 or 700 to 730, 740. And this is why we are going to solve this question with the wrong method first, and I'm going to label it the wrong method, so that if you are thinking in the same way and you've been trying to solve this question the same way, you file it in your mind that this is the wrong method, and then we will move on to the right method. If you are very sure of your concepts, please feel free to skip to the right method, and that is absolutely fine as well. So let's get started with the wrong method to solve this problem. And I'm aware that there is a easier method to solve this problem with taking values, and you're absolutely right. You can do this problem with that method. However, my intention here is to give you the concepts around inequalities and how to solve inequalities problems in a generic method. And picking values method is not always applicable or may not give you the right answer all the time if you are not very careful and diligent about picking your values. So let's get started about the wrong method. The first thing that you would always do is look at this inequality and try to solve it or simplify it. And the first step you do is you cross multiply x on both sides. That gives you x square is greater than 5. And what that means is x would be either greater than root of 5 or x would be less than negative root of 5. Now you can even go a little bit further and denote this as x is greater than 2 point something, or x is less than minus 2 point something. And then you would start looking at the answer choices. So you would look at the answer choices as x is given to be less than minus 1 to me. If I have the number line, I had simplified this inequality into x is greater than 2 point something or x is less than minus 2 point something. So it was an either or equation. Now I have another information about x, which is it is less than minus 1. So x is somewhere here. If I were to satisfy this question and answer it with a yes, then what I said was x would be either here greater than 2 point something or here less than 2 point something. So this is my yes zone, and then this will be my no zone. So when x is given to be less than -1, I have some values of x in the no zone and some values of x in the yes zone. So sometimes I would answer the question as yes and sometimes no, hence it is insufficient. Statement number 2, x is given to be greater than -3. So let me draw this again. Okay, so now here what I'm given is x is greater than -3, so x is this. It could be anywhere greater than -3, and that is the possible yes zone. However, as we know that when x is greater than -3, there are some values right here which are in yes zone and also right here which are in yes zone, but there are other values which are in no zone. So sometimes depending on the values of x, you would get yes to the asked question, other times no, hence this is insufficient also. In fact, when you combine these two, you would have x greater than -3, so right here, and then x less than -1, so right here. So these are the values possible for x, and here also there is this zone where it is y, and there is this zone where the answer to the asked question is no. So again, we are getting sometimes yes and sometimes no to the asked question, which means combined statement 1 and 2 are insufficient. So you get the answer to the question as E, which is the right answer. But here is why this is the wrong method. There is nothing given about x. X could be positive, x could be negative, and you remember this first cross multiplication you did, this was incorrect. That if you saw my solution and did not jump at this one saying you are doing this incorrectly, then there is a gap in your concepts that you need to fix. And here is the reason why. The question is asking, is x cubed greater than 5x? It has not given to you anything about x. So x could be 0, for example. If x were 0, then x cubed will not be greater than 5x. It would actually be equal. Also, when x is 0, you cannot cross multiply across even an equality, let alone an inequality. Also, since x is not given to me, x could be a negative number. If x were a negative number, the first and most important rule, if x is a negative number, you cannot cross multiply x around an inequality. Corollary to that is if you don't know anything about x, so it could be negative, it could be positive, do not cross multiply x. It would lead to wrong answers, wrong assumptions. So I started the problem the wrong way. I ended up getting the right answer, and we will see why, and that is fine. However, if you do this in the exam without knowing the sign of x, if it is positive or negative or 0, then you have a problem, my friend, and you need to fix that problem. The first one is only positive variables cross multiply, and the second one is if you don't know the sign of the variable, do not cross multiply. Okay, so now let's see how we are going to solve this using the right method. All right, so let's talk about the right method to solve this problem, and let's look at the question a little bit again. The question asks, is x cubed greater than 5x? It doesn't give us anything about x, and it's a yes or no question. So the strategy to solve questions like this could be the following. You take some values in statement 1 and 2, and you have to make sure you take all the values possible, or you solve it using algebra and find out in which ranges would x cube actually be greater than 5x. But even before then, how do you come to that conclusion that you cannot cross multiply? And the answer to that is this number house framework. If you are not familiar with this framework, I will also give a link to my number properties video in the description. Please take a look at that and you will become more familiar. Solving any number theory question, it is important to look at all the possible values of x and through elimination figure out where x could lie in this big number of possibilities. And since x is not given, we see that x could be 0, so don't forget 0. X could be even, x could be odd, fractions, decimals, surds, and positive or negative. So basically x could be anything, and assuming that x is first of all, non-zero and positive, you are going to make a mistake of missing out on a lot of values. For example, since we are asked is x cube greater than 5x, we are going to rewrite the statement a little bit. So x cube is greater than 5x. We are trying to figure out where in the number line, for example, this is possible, and I'm going to rearrange it. Since I cannot cross multiply, by subtracting both sides by 5x. It is okay to add or subtract any number on the left hand side and on the right hand side of the equation or an inequality. It's during multiplication and division where you have to be careful. Taking out x as common and then understanding that as a result of that, there are two pathways possible. This is a product of two quantities, x and x square minus 5. And if their product is greater than 0, they have to be both the same sign. Either both are negative or both are positive. So those are our two pathways. I'm going to call those pathways pathway A and pathway B. So in A pathway, both are greater than 0. So x is greater than 0. And so this is very important. So I'm going to write it in caps, which gives me x square is greater than 5. If you solve this, it will give you two options. You can take a few minutes to come to this conclusion. However, this is very straightforward inequalities. These are possibilities of or, like x could be less than minus root 5 or x could be greater than root 5. But are each of these possibilities even possible? So let's draw this number line. In the first part of path A, I'm saying x is greater than 0. So we are saying that x has to lie somewhere here. And we are saying and x could be less than minus 5. So x cannot be less than minus 5, because then they two contradict if it is a and statement, right? So this is not possible. X is greater than 5 is possible right here. So the final, when you simplify this pathway, you only get one inequality, and that is x is greater than root 5. That is one possible for answering the question as yes to the asked question. Now look at pathway B. In the product, both of the quantities are negative, which means x is less than 0 and x square minus 5 is also less than 0, which gives you x has to be between positive root 5. And let's draw the number line again, root 5. What we are saying is x is less than 0 and between these two possibilities. So what does that mean? So less than 0 is right here and between these two is right here, right? So what that means is eventually x has to be between these two, because 0 to root 5 is greater than 0, and it is not possible to have a and with greater than 0 because they contradict each other. So this results in, this is the second possibility in pathway B. We can answer yes to the asked question. Now we know where we get yes to the asked question. Everywhere else the asked question is no. So if x is greater than 0, then at x greater than root 5, we are going to get yes to the asked question. If x is less than 0, then between minus root 5 and 0, we will get yes to the asked question. Now let's start looking at the statements. So I'm going to take statement 1, x is less than minus 1. Which pathway does it follow? Of course, x is less than 0. So it's going to follow pathway number B. So in pathway number B, let's quickly draw that out, right? Pathway number B is considered where x is less than 0. So we mark 0. We also mark minus root 5. This will be 2 point something, right? Root 5 is about 2 point something. So minus 1 would be somewhere here. And what I am given, this is given thing, is x is here somewhere. What I also know based on what is question and all this analysis I have done is between minus 5 and 0, I get a yes to the asked question. So this is my yes range. But what is given to me is x is less than minus 1. So somewhere right here, I get a yes to the asked question. Everywhere else, I get a no to the asked question. So all in all, sometimes I'm getting a yes, sometimes I'm getting a no. Hence, this is insufficient to answer the question. Okay, now let's take x is greater than minus 3 as the second statement. I realize that this is pathway B where x is less than 0. and I draw it out again. So this would be my minus root 5. Somewhere here would be my minus 3 because this is minus 2 point something. And what I have been given is between these two quantities, right? Minus 5 and 0. I get a yes to the asked question. The statement gives us x is greater than minus 3. So doesn't give me where exactly x is greater than minus 3, but x is greater than minus 3. So which is my this value, right? So x could be somewhere here where I get a no to the asked question. Right in between, I get a yes to the asked question. And anywhere here, I get a no to the asked question again. So this is not sufficient because I'm getting yes to the asked question sometimes and no to the asked question sometimes. And I don't know if you noticed, but this is not necessarily pathway B only, because there are options, there are possibilities for x to be greater than 0 here. So even pathway x is possible, in which case there would be other set of yes and no values. However, within x less than 0, we can figure out very simply that there are sometimes no values and sometimes yes values. Now let's combine the two statements. So x is less than minus 1. So let me just draw minus 1 here so that we are clear. I am given two things about x. X is less than minus 1 and x is greater than minus 3. So I am talking about this range right here. Okay, even within this range, as you can clearly see, sometimes, right here, I get a yes to the asked question because it is between 0 and minus 5. And sometimes I get a no to the asked question because it is outside of that range. And as a result, this is not sufficient also. Hence, the answer to this question is E. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any doubts or are not able to follow something, I understand this is kind of a complex question. The degree of difficulty for this question is about 650 plus. Please leave a comment and I will try to answer the question. Use this question to really understand how to solve inequalities problems. What are the fundamental ways to solve the inequalities problem and how do we compare the ranges? Have a good one.